Happy Friday, everybody. I am Nick Slavik. I am the proprietor of the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live, a weekly live Facebook show where you ask any questions related to painting, decorating, wallpaper hanging, wood finishing, historic restoration, color consultations, anything you like, and I answer them here live. You can also send them to me during the week on my Ask a Painter page on Facebook Live, or excuse me, on Facebook. You can leave those there, start a new thread for each question, include some pictures, a description, something that went wrong. If you got something you'd like to do with something, tell me what your desired finish is, and pictures help the best too, and I'll relay those. So we have 3 questions today, some varied questions here. I'm actually in Minneapolis at the Plaster Center at the world headquarters of Hirschfield's Paint and Decorating. I'm actually learning some decorative techniques of a Italian plaster company for decorative interior finishes. So very exciting. Also, if you guys want to follow along, I started a hashtag Cottage Cabin. It's on Instagram and on Facebook. I just started a brand new newly constructed cabin in the Northwoods. It's styled after maybe a 20 or 30s home. It's a super interesting project, beautiful wilderness setting, but all new from the floor up. I will be decorating every inch of that thing in the next couple months here. So if you want to follow along with progress, hashtag Cottage Cabin, and we can you can follow along with all the progress there. So first question here from Anna Laterno. I have a question about caulking. We have all painted trim throughout our house. Basement was done 2 years ago, and in some places it's cracking and pulling away from the wall or trim already. Is it because I probably bought cheap caulk, or am I just I'm just about getting ready to start on the upstairs? I don't want to repeat that. Thanks. Okay, just like in last week's show where I detailed the painting of interior trim, number 1 is cleaning and prepping, number 2 is priming, and number 3 is top coating. When you go to seal all your cracks with caulk or sealant or whatever it's called in your neck of the woods, you want to do it after the priming phase. So get all your woodwork primed, then fill all the nail holes, then do all the caulking, because it will adhere better to a primed surface. I would imagine that you know, a lot of the problems that Anna's having here is because the it was probably caulked on bare wood. Now, Anna, if you're chiming in here, or if you can see any of this stuff, definitely, you know, let me know. But when I see the caulk or the nail holes or something come away from finished wood, most of the time it's because caulk caulk right over bare finished wood, or even just bare wood for that matter. Even on the exterior of homes, when we scrape wood or other surfaces, we always prime the bare wood, even, you know, especially when you have corner boards with lap siding, you know, butting up into it. That corner board is all the time where the caulk releases or comes loose or fails. What you want to do is, when you have bare surfaces where they meet, prime with oil primer, all that stuff, and then put the caulk on there, and it'll last indefinitely longer. So I would imagine that that is the case. It is a absolute pain to fix. If you have one of those situations where the caulking is coming away, it makes a huge mess. It can even tear the wall a little bit if you have drywall. Another thing that people always ask me about when I finish cabinets is, you know, on a raised panel door where you have the frame on the outside and that panel that floats in the middle, there's going to be a seam there. And they're floating panels because they float for a reason. Seasonal change in humidity, temperature, moisture, things like that can make that wood expand and contract, and it floats inside grooves in there. And if you completely seal that, it will not be able to move, and the panel will either crack, or more likely what will happen is the actual caulk will get pulled away from the wood itself. And I saw one kitchen about 3 years ago where somebody had painted the cabinets. It was a very poor job, so I'm sure it was somebody without a lot of experience. They caulked every crack in every door, and they used some cheap caulk, some sealant. And over the years, it had all pulled away, and it was a complete disaster, to the point where they had to replace the cabinet. So Do not caulk those things. It will move. Yes, there's going to be a tiny little black sliver of a line, but it's the lesser of two evils. It's better to have that black sliver of a line that can move and expand and contract than either panel cracking or the caulking pulled away. So, Anna, if you're watching this, please let me know if that helps out. Also, if there's anything specific about, you know, the type of trim, the type of finish that was on there, anything like that, you just let me know. So. Next question here. Oh, and Anna, for that, I will send you one of my mugs, and you'll be part of the hashtag mug club as well. So, Daniel Bortner, two questions for you. We have best way to get leftover glue off of walls after taking down wallpaper, and best paint for painting kitchen cabinets. Thanks. Okay, the best way to get leftover glue off of walls while taking wallpaper down. Okay. Not many things that I keep secret. Wallpaper removal is one of those things I don't keep a secret, but I have a hard-fought solution that's taken me 23 or 24 years to perfect. It is spot on, fabulous, easy to do, even makes it fun, I dare say. I will not share with you that. There are some things that a professional just has to do and do himself. So, what I can tell you is that if you go to Ace Hardware, if you go to Hirschfield, Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, any of those paint stores, what you're going to find are solutions made by Zinsser. I believe they're all called Diff. It's an enzyme that actually breaks down the organic molecules in wallpaper paste and things like that. I will tell you this, when I remove wallpaper, I use a garden sprayer, a large pump. You know, you pump up the pressure and then you use a wand to spray it on the wall. Moisture is key, working in small areas is key, and also what you want to do is use as hot water that you can that comes out of the tap. So I have a 2-gallon pump sprayer. I fill that sucker up with as hot water as I can. If you're doing it, go grab some of that enzyme stuff. Just follow the directions on the back. It works really well. You have to be careful a little bit with that stuff, only because a lot of the Diff has either a golden or a blue tint. Blue is sort of the traditional tint. If you spray too much of that on a white or a popcorn ceiling, it will stain the ceiling a little bit. But if you follow the recommendations on the back of the jug of Diff, some are concentrates, some you just use right from the thing, you'll have really good results with that stuff. Now, a couple things you want to do with that is I take Scotch-Brite pads, very, very coarse ones. Some of the ones I use are actually for stripping paint off of furniture and other stuff. They're very, very coarse, almost like steel wool. And the ones that I get have a yellow plastic handle on them, so they actually adhere to the square of Scotch-Brite material. So when you're scrubbing the wall, you know, I spray the solution on the wall, I loosen it up with the Scotch-Brite pad, and then a little trick I am happy to share is you take an actual window squeegee, the kind you see at gas stations that are in the blue juice there. You take one of those squeegees and you can scrub a little bit with the sponge side, but you flip it over to the squeegee side and you squeegee down the wall, and that will remove most of that stuff. Quickly, while it's wet, I take a terry cloth towel or a microfiber towel in pure clean water and just give it one final wash down. That usually gets rid of the haze. I usually work in about you know, a 4 foot by 4 foot section like that. If you spray down an entire room, an entire wall, you're not gonna, it's gonna dry out too quick. You have a short window to reactivate that glue and then get it off. The trick to knowing if you got enough glue off is once you believe you're done with everything, put a little water on your finger, swirl it around in a circle. If it feels sticky or slimy or something like that, you know you still have paste on there. If it's squeaky clean, you know, when you rub your hand against a piece of glass or something, then you know you got all the glue off. Over the years, if you listen to any advice on the removal of wallpaper and other things like that, people always say if you have any haze, if you have any stuff left on the wall, it's a complete disaster. Take it from me, it is not. There's certain, you want to get as much as you can off, but if there's a slight haze, it will not affect the top coats of paint. If you're in question, prime it. Most of the time with a super high quality interior paint, very thick bodied acrylic, you can go 2 coats right over the top of that stuff, doesn't affect it at all. Having said that, that's with just haze, maybe slight bit of glue on there. If you have chunks, if you have pieces of wallpaper backing, you're gonna reignite that stuff. You're gonna activate it with the moisture from the paint, and it will actually bubble up, and then you have to scrape that off before the paint dries. Otherwise, you have a complete disaster. Now, on the far end of this, I have been in certain situations in office buildings or apartments where the owner, the landlord, said, "This wallpaper needs to go, and we need to get by with as little work, as cheaply as possible, while still maintaining a high degree of finish. So what I did for them was I got most of the glue off. There was a haze, and if you wet the wall, it got real slimy, but it's a water-based glue. It was adhered to the wall. I did a test section in the back of a closet where I did my 2 coats of paint, and I could not scratch it off the wall with my finger with you know, the famous scratch test. So I went ahead and did that. That building, that office is still in service today. Paint is good. So not a normal practice. I would not do that normally if I were you. But on the far end of it, I have seen it work with you know, you remove the large amount of glue, but if there's a haze or something left, it's honestly not the end of the world. So thank you, Danielle, for that. Also, her second question, best paint for painting kitchen cabinets. I'm a little bit biased in here. Every major professional paint manufacturer has a very good paint. And sadly, a lot of them are available only to contractors. Well, they're not available just to us, but they're things you don't see on the shelf. It's almost sad to me that in a Sherwin-Williams, when you walk in there, you'll see a dozen kinds of paint there, and those are the ones that are all known by names. Most contractors don't use those paints. They use stuff out of the back. There's lower level stuff, mid-level stuff that's geared and marketed towards the contractor, and you sort of have to ask for it by name. It's not, you're not going to see it on the shelf, and you're not going to be able to compare it. So sadly, there's a lot of stuff in there that's available only to us, especially industrial coatings. There's a whole new breed of industrial coatings that are sort of the hybrids. They're an oil and water mixture where, you know, you get the benefits of a tough oil, but you're really left, you know, the environmental regulations aren't as tough on those things. So you don't get the smell, you don't get the crazy VOCs, but you're also left with that good old traditional stuff. So little tough. If you're wondering about that sort of thing, you just got to go into a Sherwin-Williams, and you have to ask about the homeowner products, and then you have to ask about, you know, the professional stuff. What do professionals use? Like, tell me what I would paint my cabinets with that's available out here, and then say in the back, what do most contractors use? And they'll let you in on some of that stuff there. And sadly, there's a whole bunch of good products that a homeowner would never know about, or at least know enough to do that. So best paint for painting a kitchen cabinets. That, to me, asking what, and I assume you mean top coat, that is almost 5% of painting kitchen cabinets. To me, the most important part of painting kitchen cabinets is prep. You know, my famous 40 hours of prep for a kitchen brings you up to standard there. Then using an oil primer, and then my go-to right now is a hybrid from Benjamin Moore called Advance. It's that same technology I just talked about. You have an oil molecule surrounded by water. The water gets it onto the cabinet door. The water evaporates, and then you're left with an oil finish. Very easy to use for a homeowner, very easy to brush, surprisingly. It's a very, very hard product. Much more difficult to work with than a wall paint, but boy, for coming right out of the can, you don't have to doctor it up any. You can just use it straight. It's got a good enough open time where you can brush it or mess with it or touch it up, but not so long like the old traditional oil where it's going to be tacky for a day or two. So if you're asking about what top coat I use, I am using a hybrid from Benjamin Moore called Advance. Sherwin-Williams also makes a Pro Classic hybrid, which is very good. It's a different shine, different properties of the paint, and if you get a quart of each and try them out, you'll know instantly the difference between brushing and spraying and other stuff between them. Sherwin-Williams has a little less shine with their satin hybrid. It's a little bit thicker paint, little less open time. It dries quicker. I think it's geared more towards contractors that use that because they want that quick dry time so it doesn't get dust on it and stuff. So, but otherwise, Ask a Painter, I believe it's number 17. I have a 45-minute long treatise on exactly how to paint your cabinets, and in there I outline at greater length this sort of thing. So Daniel, thank you for the question. If you need me to elaborate on it anymore, go right ahead. But otherwise, do not use a wall paint. Do not go into a big box store and ask the pimply face high schooler how to paint cabinets. Use a true enamel. The most widely available enamels are from Benjamin Moore, and they're from Sherwin-Williams. Sherwin-Williams offering is called Pro Classic. There's water-based, oil-based, and hybrid. Benjamin Moore has Advance, which is the hybrid stuff. They have the Pro Classic water base and the Pro Classic oil base. And depending on where you are in the country or even Canada, you may not be able to get a lot of oil base. You may only be able to get water base. The reason I don't use water base all the time is because it is a softer finish. So that's just basically, you know, when I'm called to do a kitchen cabinet finish, smell doesn't matter. You know, ease of application doesn't matter. All the homeowner wants is the highest quality, hardest, most durable finish. Right now, that is oil or that oil-water hybrid. So if that helps out, I've had a homeowner, I actually did this homeowner's kitchen. She did an entertainment unit in her basement with the Benjamin Moore Advance in the pure black that comes straight from the can. It's a stock color. And she brushed it all, and she did a phenomenal job. I was actually surprised that she had me do her cabinets because she did such a good job in the basement. But and she brushed it all, and it looks so good. It looks like a professional finish. So I would go Benjamin Moore Advance satin for a number of reasons. And yeah, if you need me to elaborate more, just let me know. Jamie Lynn Bilo, I thought I saw you show up here a little bit ago. Oh, there we go. Jamie, thank you for your question, and thank you for watching as well. I don't have a photo, but what are your recommendations for removing exterior paint from windows left from previous owners? Razor blade, or is there a chemical solution? Most of the time, if they're paintable windows, that means they've been around for a while, which means that they probably have a whole bunch of bad stuff done to them. So there's probably, you know, 2 to 3, maybe 4 to 6 different coats of paint on there that have got on the glass there. When paint is outside and exposed to UV and moisture and all this other stuff, especially UV, it'll harden up. Razor blade might be tough. If it's one single layer of paint, razor blade will work really well. The trick, you know, if this, you know, monitor, if this video image is the actual window pane, what I do first is take my razor blade and score right next to the muntins, right next to the glazing on the glass, and then you use a razor blade attached to a little handheld tool, you know, to save on your fingers, and you very easily scrape it up. You can hold it in such a way that your thumb can ride against the flat part of the sash, and you can shave that stuff off. If it's 6 layers of paint, 7, 8 layers of paint, and it's all dry and crusty, a razor blade isn't going to be enough. You'll be kind of chipping away at it, chiseling it. A little trick from the restoration side is safety up. So you want to get your respirator, your gloves, you know, maybe an old sweatshirt, something like that, something to hold your hair back, and you get a heat gun out, and you actually just, you're not trying to bake the paint up. You don't want to bubble it up, but you heat it up just to the point where it softens up. Now, with this, it's going to be tough to use a razor blade because your hand's going to be in close proximity to a heat gun. Hair dryer, it's going to take a long time to get that to temp. If you have one window to do, all you have is a hair dryer, do it. It's going to take a long time to heat it up. A heat gun, however, will soften it up quickly, and you want to have a tool with a long handle so that your hand's not in close proximity to that heat gun, and then just kind of, you know, go from there. When I'm doing a restoration on an old home, I will make sure that I actually remove all the paint from the putty, the glazing around the glass too, because most of the time I will just remove that stuff and start over from new. If you're doing a complete wood window repaint, I would take some of that paint back as well, because the glazing on those windows is never perfect. You want to patch in with new glazing, and it is actually glazing, not caulking. If you go, even my local hardware store in my town has buckets of glazing. It's kind of like a putty, a silly putty, like you need like that, and you work it. The more you work it, the more flexible it gets, and you can actually make a snake out of it, lay it in that window sash, and then you take a putty knife and tool it to that perfect sort of 45-degree angle like that. The only downside with glazing is that it takes a long time to dry. Most of it is oil-based. I have been experimenting with some water-based stuff with some really good results, but to me, the good oil-based stuff in the past is really good stuff. It stays strong, it flexes a little bit with the movement of the wood, and then when you go to get it out, you know, 50, 80 years later, it's actually something that will come out. It's not an adhesive, it's not sticky like silicone, things like that. So let's see here. I hope that helps. If you want to use a chemical, Goo Gone will work, but that's really only for like a single layer of paint, or if you have like a haze of paint. If you got a whole bunch of layers of paint, Goo Gone really isn't going to do that. If you're doing a complete wood window restoration, what I do is either burn it off with a heat gun, or I'll actually submerge the whole thing in chemical stripper, wrap it in plastic, and then you could just brush it all off and you start over from brand new. So it kind of depends how far you're going to go. if you're not going to repaint your windows and you just want to get the paint off, get a very, very stiff razor blade or a scraper from your hardware store with a sharp end, and just sort of try chiseling away like that. Glass is very impervious to scratches, but if you push hard enough with an edge, you will scratch the glass. So just be careful with that. And I noticed that with newer windows as well. Things that have glazing on them, coatings, UV protectants. Sometimes you'll actually, you know, shave some of that stuff off. So just be very careful with that. So, Jamie, thank you so much for your question here, and thank you for watching as well. And I'm going to scroll up through here and see where we're at. Okay. Pinturas, thanks for watching. Yeah, thanks for your comments this last week too. It's been good. Jamie, thank you for your question. Thank you for your watching today. Danny, good to see you, man. Danny is a pro. And he just posted some pictures of a kitchen that he just recently did, and he actually used one of those Sherwin-Williams industrial enamels. I think it was alkyd urethane or a water-based urethane, and again, that's not something that a homeowner is going to see, but if you ask for it or ask what the pros use, you may get that, and he brushed it, and it was a very, very good product. So congratulations on that, Danny. I know that you had posted looking for some advice on that before. Rob, my friend, good to see you. Great fishing pictures. Yeah, it was I tell you what, man, my customers are some of the best people I know. That cottage cabin, the hashtag cottage cabin project that I just started, I am so lucky to get to do projects like that. This thing, I have a house built in 1917, 1918. This cottage looks exactly like something from that era, or maybe the 20s or the early 30s. And I've worked on the homeowner's home in my hometown before, and they're the type of people that will chop down a tree, mill the wood, make all the wood for their house, and then have me do some professional finishes on it. And their attention to detail, their vision for their homes and things like that are just unbelievable. So you're not going to want to miss the progress on this. I will be posting the pictures from there. It's going to be super interesting. The homeowner is actually, I left yesterday to come back home here because I have a family to tend to again. But the homeowner is up there right now, and he milled his own wood, and he's putting up a lot of that homemade millwork in that house right now. So unbelievable project. Under hashtag cottage cabin, you can follow along on the progress with that one. I'll be up there probably in about 3 weeks here to start finishing the woodwork in that one. But yeah, I actually snuck away early morning to do some fishing, and I actually speared the largest fish in my life that morning there. So it was just a tiny little 64-acre lake. It's almost just like a little pond, but it was beautiful. Oh, Rob, I have a drop ceiling in a hospital office to paint. How do you go about that? Rob, if you're still watching, are they working in it currently, or do you have sort of run-of-the-mill? That will make all the difference in the world. I've done drop ceilings in 2 ways. Number one, obviously spraying is a very, very quick way. A lot of the times with drop ceilings, what you'll find is there's tons of water stains and other stuff, so I carry around cans of Upshot or pigmented shellac primer, and I'll spray all those first. It's open. Open meaning nobody working, or are there people working there, Rob? But I've sprayed them, and I've also done them by hand too. In one of them, I had 3 helpers basically just taking down tiles and putting them back up. So what we did was we started a little workshop in the corner of this area, fully running. Okay, here's the deal. If you have a fully running place, you're obviously not going to be able to spray that unless you can get in there at night, but the prep is insane like that if you're spraying over workstations and stuff like that. Here's what I did. 2 or 3 helpers, you start a little factory, a little workshop somewhere else. I would get in there at night because there's no way you're going to be able to disrupt them. Get in there night, weekend, something like that. There's no way you're not going to be able to disturb these people by working over them. What I do is 2 or 3 helpers, all they're doing is basically taking down ceiling tiles, bringing them to my little workshop. We're painting them, we're stacking them, we're drying them, and putting them back up. In the off hours, I'll take a whole ton of plastic with me and drop cloths, and I'll use a small roller, not a weenie roller like this. I'll use a standard sort of, 3/4 inch nap roller, but it's one of the shorties like this. It's where it's basically a 9-inch roller cut into 3-inch segments, and they have a specific little roller handles for them. And basically what I'll do is just go along the grid, very small amount of paint, very low nap on the roller, and you basically just go along with a pole and you just sort of hit all the grids after the ceiling tiles are down. Most businesses won't mind if the ceiling tiles are gone, unless it's real dirty up there and it starts, you know, stuff coming down. But basically, all the tiles come down. I paint the grid by that little roller on a handle. Go around the outside as well. Usually it takes about well, if they're white and they're going white again, a lot of times if you use a very, very good paint, like if you use an Order or something, or even Breakthrough. Rob, I think you had mentioned trying Breakthrough in the past for me, and that was a really good paint. The only problem is I don't know if it comes in flat, which you probably want a flat for that, but a roller on a handle to do the grid itself. Workshop, where I basically just take a roller and you just paint those tiles. When you get enough of them dry, you have a little area with fans. As soon as they're dry enough, the guys just pop them right in. So it's like a big circular motion where new tiles come, we paint them, we dry them, we hang them, and it actually goes pretty quickly. I mean, obviously, if this was a place where you could have 2 or 3 days of run-of-the-mill, I would just cover everything with plastic, everything with canvas, and just spray it like that. But obviously, if you're going to be working over, 300 computer stations, you do not want to be messing around with overspray and stuff like that. So, if you're spraying, yeah, dry fall. You're asking about dry fall. Dry fall for homeowners is a industrial product. When you go into Walmart, Home Depot, Target, and you look up and there's that steel ceiling with all the ribs and stuff, contractors get in there with a paint that's called dry fall. When you spray it, magically, by the time it hits the ground, it's dry and you can sweep it up. If you're using a standard wall paint, it would probably be tacky and then it makes a huge mess on the ground. So dry fall would be good. I've noticed that dry fall makes a huge mess. If you use a very good interior paint and you're spraying inside and your sprayer's dialed in, so there's not a lot of pressure, not a lot of overspray, or at least no more than you need, you're not going to get a lot of that stuff. So it kind of depends what it is. Whatever you decide to do, Rob, let us know. Let us know how it turns out, and let us know what you ended up using. Most of the time, I'll just use a standard interior paint. If you use a standard wall paint or a ceiling paint, a lot of the times there's a lot of pollution on those ceiling tiles, and so it'll take a couple coats. A little trick that I found is, you can use a more expensive paint like Aura or like Duration Interior or Emerald Interior, and it'll actually cover in one coat if you use a very flat version of that very, very well. And yes, it's more expensive. It could be 75 bucks a gallon versus 30 a gallon for a standard wall paint, but if it saves you one coat on those, huge labor savings, and then you pass that along to your customers, and then they're happy too. So let's see if we got any more questions here. Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for watching. I got to get back in. I snuck away. No problem, Rob. I appreciate your interaction all the time. I got to sneak back in. We're doing some Venetian plaster. We're doing some other really cool stuff here with all these products from Italy. I will be posting some pictures of before and afters of them too. So thank you all for watching, and send all those questions to me on my Facebook page, Ask a Painter Live. You can post pictures, questions anywhere you want. Just hashtag them, Ask a Painter. I'll track them down. We'll get to them. So everybody have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.